Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mel and today we're talking all about books that I read in past springs that I absolutely fell in love with. So books that became my entire personality that I didn't want to put down and that I think you'll really love too. If you love reading books this time of year just like I do, grab a coffee and let's talk about some of my absolute favorites. Spring is my favorite season for so many different reasons. Number one, it's my birthday season, which makes it extra special. But number two, I just love when the weather starts to change. Here in Nova Scotia, we usually have a pretty wintry and cold couple of months leading up into spring, of course. And I just love hearing the birds chirp for the first time, having the windows wide open, being able to sit on a porch and read. There's just nothing better than that. Some of my all-time favorite reading memories have been sitting outside, diving into a book, and just spending an entire afternoon doing nothing but reading and listening to nature. Those are always my absolute favorite days, and some of those books have become my favorite because when I read them or when I think about them, I'm transported back to that time, which is what I always love about reading, is its ability to take us out of everyday life and into somewhere just a little bit more magical. Today's video is all about suggesting 5 books that when I think about them or when I think about reading them, I'm automatically transported back to a beautiful spring day, and I hope you'll have just as much fun checking them out as I did. So let's get into some spring reading suggestions. The first book I have to suggest is one I actually read on the very first day of spring this year, and that is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is a book I read on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical version, but it's one that I will be rushing to the bookstore to pick up as soon as I can because I absolutely love and adore this book. This is a translated work, so it was originally published in Japanese, and basically it follows a very simple premise. There is a coffee shop that has a very timeless quality to it, and that's partially because this coffee shop actually can help you travel through time. But there are a few big key rules, and one is that you're not allowed to do anything that could change the present in any dramatic way. So people use this coffee shop as a way to go back and find out information that maybe they missed, or to get closure about things that have happened in the past. This book is all about the importance of those very tiny little moments in life that maybe sometimes we overlook that can take place anywhere, even in a coffee shop. This is a wonderful, wonderful story. It took me less than a day to read. I blew through it, but it was just so magical and so wonderful, and I really hope you'll pick this one up. The next book I have to recommend is The Weight of Feathers by Anna-Marie McLemore. Now, if you are familiar with my channel, if you've been here for a few videos, you know I will recommend this author any chance I get. Their writing is so lush and so lyrical, and they do magical realism like no one else. I would describe this book as the perfect mix between Romeo and Juliet and also The Night Circus. So if you enjoy The Night Circus or you enjoy maybe the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber, this would have very similar vibes. It's about 2 families who both participate in what is essentially a traveling circus show. So they are both performing families. One has magic akin to birds, so they're doing lots of trapeze work in the trees, and the other has magical abilities akin to mermaids. So they are kind of in the water, doing beautiful diving and those such things. These 2 families, of course, are rivals, and then there might be a bit of a love interest between 2 members of the different families. The next story I think you should pick up is Summer of Salt, and this is by Katrina Leno. This is another magical realism book, but this one is in YA, so it's a little bit lighter. Now that being said, this one does deal with some heavy topics, so just please make sure you check out those trigger warnings. They're not very clearly outlined on the flap, so just make sure you do take a peek before you pick this one up. This one is following a family who's going to a coastal island for the summer, and this family also has some magic. Basically, each woman in this family is gifted with some sort of magical ability, and it looks as if maybe one of the younger members of the family isn't getting one. So this whole summer is spent trying to figure out what that magical ability might be, and it's a really, really interesting story, all about family dynamics and all about how magic can impact things in everyday life, but also how sometimes those everyday moments are actually more impactful than magic itself. The next book is one that I would recommend for anybody looking for those spooky or fall vibes, even though it is spring. And that book is House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig. Now, this is actually the perfect book to pick up this spring because the sequel should be released later this spring, or maybe very beginning of summer. And I am so looking forward to that because this book was something that you could absolutely dive into and get lost in. This is a YA horror book that's based loosely on the story of the 5 dancing princesses. It takes place on a very stormy coastline in a castle, and it is just the most magical story. I don't want to give too much away because a lot of this is a mystery story that it's really fun to find out about as you turn each and every page, but I will say if you like spooky stories, if you like ghost stories, if you like mystery, and if you love that coastal atmospheric vibe, this should be a book that you absolutely pick up this spring. The last book I would recommend is one that I consider one of my absolute favorite all-time books, and that is Dig by A.S. King. This is a book that talks about the impact of race and wealth on families and intergenerational families. This is a very unique and quirky book. It's one that went in a completely different direction than what I expected, so it's one that, again, I'll be very careful not to spoil, but it's a really, really interesting look at the American dream and how the American dream might not necessarily be ideal for everybody in the traditional sense that we think it is, and how sometimes the pursuit of things like wealth can really impact a family. And I think this is just a phenomenal, wonderful book. It also has some magical realism elements as well. You can tell that that's one of my favorite things to explore, but I think this book is one that absolutely everybody should read. And those are just 5 of the books that I absolutely fell in love reading during a past or previous spring season, and I hope you'll really enjoy them too. Thanks so much for watching. As always, please let me know in the comments down below what you plan on reading this spring, or if you have a favorite spring memory of reading one of your favorite books. I would love to know that too. Thanks everybody, as always, for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye everybody.